Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
The answer is yes?
Correct.
Yes, yes. Did you hear that? The answer was yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to mute you again, Senator, and I think Mr. Balagopalan has a question.
Yeah, I had a follow-up for Mr. Harris. Do you have the proposed condition, Exhibit 7, in front of you?
Yes, I do.
And you have reviewed it?
Yes.
I'm noticing that, there's a section for wastewater treatment, and then there are conditions for the raw materials. If you look at raw materials and rendering area condition 4,
Yep.
it seems to, what's the difference with that with condition 4 on the wastewater treatment?
That might have just slipped into the wrong side, being that that's talking about wastewater.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh,
So what is it? What will be the date then? Is it December? Because in the wastewater number 4 says December 1st, and then here it says May 1st, 2021.
okay. May I interject?
Yes.
yes.
That is a typo. It should say the raw materials area. Number 4 by May 1st, instead of wastewater treatment area, it should say raw materials area. So that's just a typographical error.
Oh, okay.
Did you have any other questions, Mr. Balagopalan?
Now, so it's just to be, so it's raw materials and rendering area, just completely.
So it might be best if you have Mr. Vincent Gorman or Bill Gorman testify to this, but my understanding is that the raw materials area and the wastewater treatment area will share carbon vessels at some point, and the rest of the area would have separate carbon vessels. So the
Okay.
rendering area and the raw materials area have different carbon vessels that they're using.
Okay.
But please have someone, witness testify to that.
So then, yeah, okay. Just I want to clarify then it's for the raw material receiving area. Oh, I can ask Mr. Gorman, what. But is this a condition on the permit that was issued? On the permit to construct?
So these are our proposed conditions, what the district is proposing, the construction milestones, and someone else can speak to what is in the permit since I am not a witness.
Yeah, okay.
Does Mr. Harris know? Mr. Harris, do you know?
The milestones are not in the permit, no.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I think I'll wait to ask Mr. Gorman what he understands of that condition number 4,
Okay.
specifically what area.
Oh, I'm admitting Senator Holden on video. Hold on, let's see if we have it. Ah, good. Let's see. But I don't think, hold on. Okay. Senator, can you speak? Oh,
There is.
Pardon?
okay. I unmuted you. All right. Then I'm going to, okay, you got rid of your phone line. Great. Great to see you. Okay. Did you have any other questions, Senator?
No other questions.
Okay. I'm going to mute you then, but just wave your hand if you would like to be heard. Okay. Okay. Any other questions, board members? No. Okay, great. Ms. Sue, did you have any other witnesses?
No, I do not. So I would like to ask Mr. Vincent Gorman or Bill Gorman questions if they're available.
Okay, so then what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to, gentlemen, I'm going to unmute your line. Okay. And first I'm going to ask Mr. Vincent or Mr. Bill Gorman whether you wish to give a statement. First of all, can you just state for the record, each of you, that you did take the oath today?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you very much. And would either of you like to give any statement at this time, or would you just like to open it up for questions?
No, just open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sue, you may ask any questions you wish.
Just so the record is clear, which of Mr. Vincent Gorman, Mr. Bill Gorman, which of you is most familiar with the permit and also the construction matter? Who should I be posing my questions to?
I am. I'm Vincent.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Vincent Gorman. Have you reviewed the proposed conditions that was sent to the clerk yesterday?
Yes, I have.
And does the facility agree to abide by these conditions?
Yes, we do.
And what is your title at D&D?
Vice President.
Okay. And can you just briefly describe the different structures and air pollution control equipment that the facility will be building?
Because of their close proximity to one another, the wastewater treatment area and the raw material receiving area, those two structures are going to be ducted to the same test carbon filtration system. So the testing of the filtration system would be done with both of those locations. We chose that out of just because they were real close to one another. As you guys have stated earlier, the rendering plant, which is not near the raw material area nor the wastewater area, the rendering plant will have its own standalone closed system with its own scrubbing, carbon scrubbing apparatus.
Okay, and based on the proposed construction milestones, is this something that the facility would be able to accomplish?
Yes.
Okay, and has the facility sought out a contractor to do the construction?
Well, yes and no. In gathering all of what we know equipment we're going to be needing, duct work, electrical components, and the likes of that, we are getting assistance and involvement with a third party. But insofar as a written contract from them, no.
Okay. And does the facility understand that the wastewater treatment area enclosure needs to be completed first and also begin venting first?
That is correct. We are very much aware of that.
Great, thank you. No further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions for, I think we have Mr. Vince Gorman, and Mr. Bill Gorman, if you did want to add to any question, just please, for the record, indicate that it's you speaking. Otherwise, we'll assume it's Vincent Gorman. Okay, yes, Mr. Balagopalan.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Gorman, do you, in light of the shutdown and shelter in place and so forth, do you anticipate any type of delays in meeting this timelines for the wastewater treatment?
Yeah, we haven't a clue. We know that it affected us greatly in the amount of reused frying oils from the different restaurants that independent haulers pick up from. There was a dramatic decrease in all of that. There's usually a little longer delay in making phone calls for some of the testing apparatus and the likes. Units that have to be built, constructed a certain way to measure for the kind of constituents that both the permit and the proposed conditions reference. So it takes a little longer to get a hold of people, I would imagine, because they aren't at their offices, but they do access their phone messages, and eventually they do get back to us. But I can't answer for the rest of the state, so I don't know. I'm hopeful that everyone will be back to normal shortly.
So do you have a contract with a construction company to do the installation for the wastewater treatment, to do the ductwork and installing the carbon absorption system and so forth?
No, I do not have a contract. No.
Do you plan to issue one soon? I mean, so that you can meet those timelines?
Well,
Yeah, this is Bill Gorman. Once we have the contract for the components, like the filters, then we can go ahead and, work on the actual enclosure for the wastewater, which is rather small.
So is it something that you would do with staff you have in-house, or are you going to have somebody, an outside company, do that for you?
This is Bill Gorman again. We have a lead on an enclosure, a used metal enclosure. And if that turns out to be the case, that we can get a used, in good shape metal enclosure, then staff here should be able to construct it.
And your staff has experience with carbon adsorption control systems and what needs to be done to make sure that it's operating properly and venting the wastewater treatment system?
Yes, we do have that. I'd be the one that would do the measurements of the gas constituents going in to the filtration system and the measurement of the gas constituents coming out of the scrubbing system. And the rule is clear about what percentage improvement there has to be in each of those readings. So yeah, it's easily followable. And I've spent considerable time months back talking to Atul about different aspects of what volume of carbon is needed, as I have had numerous conversations and went down to the carbon packing facilities to determine what is the best package that they sell specifically for wastewater and raw decayed animal materials that is their recommended choices. This is something that other rendering facilities have been using for quite some time. So they are familiar with the different gases that the rule itself is asking for pinpoint reduction of. And their spec sheets relative to their testing results shows that the 70 percentile improvement / reduction, however direction you want to look at it as, it's attainable.
Okay, thank you. I just had one more, just clarification question on that proposed condition, the construction milestone. You have that in front of you?
I do.
And I wanted to bring your attention to condition number 4 on the raw materials and rendering area.
Correct.
So should it read by May 1st, 2021, respondent shall complete the testing for the raw materials receiving area?
Yeah, and when I read that, because I knew that the two areas were going to be tied in together, it really didn't matter about the testing of the system. The one system required much earlier than the other system. It would both be operational and workable and tested to confirm that it suited its requirement. So I didn't, when I read the one, I see the two, because like I said before, they're tied together. The raw material area and the wastewater area are all tied together.
So those, the raw material receiving area and the wastewater treatment will go to a common control, which is the carbon absorber.
That is correct.
One last question. Are you seeing an uptick or down in materials you're receiving, the regular material for rendering with the shutdown?
The bottom fell out of everything for us, just like a lot of businesses.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I see Ms. Verdugo Peralta. I'm going to unmute you. Oop. No, can't do that. There we go.
I just want clarification. So in the raw materials and rendering number 4, are you saying that that's a typo where it says on the first sentence that the word wastewater should be replaced by raw materials? I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, I don't consider it a typo. It doesn't need to be changed for my account because it's one in the same area that the scrubbing system is going to address.
What about from the district? Is that a typo for the district?
I understand what Mr. Gorman is saying. It's because they're sharing the same system, regardless of whether or not we say wastewater treatment area, raw materials receiving area, it either would be fine. I understand why it's confusing because they're two separate enclosures. Or maybe I should ask Mr. Gorman whether or not they're two separate enclosures, or is it one large enclosure for both areas?
Yeah, it's two separate enclosures, all connected to the same scrubbing system, a very large scrubbing system with very large fans. And like I had commented earlier in speaking with the engineer at your facility and with the graphite facilities, they're the ones that gave me, here, you're going to need this size, you're going to need that many pounds. And your engineering group was saying you're going to have a so many surface feet per minute capability out of your fans. So you have to be able to monitor the RPMs and all that. So like I say, if you wanted to dot an I and cross a T, you can change wastewater treatment area in number 4 under raw materials to just say raw material receiving area. But
May I
again,
suggest, if it's all right with the facility, to say for the wastewater treatment area and raw materials receiving area, so it's clear that both are venting to that air pollution control equipment?
fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is that all, Ms. Verdugo Peralta? Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions? I just had a quick question, just following up on Mr. Balagopalan's questions with regard to shutdowns and slowdowns and in construction. Are the conditions and the milestones, in your opinion, do they have any kind of leeway for, are they conservative for in case of any delays in your mind? Is there cushion in there?
Yeah, this was a helpful extension in dates. I had requested the extension be done on the Rule 415 end, and when the proposed conditions to construct milestones came out, I saw that yes, in fact, this helped a great deal. It extended time, and that was helpful.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, board members? Senator, go ahead.
Right.
and these proposed construction milestones, there are a lot of dates specified for completion of certain requirements. Now, you have a history of not maintaining, not being in compliance, even though you've agreed to certain conditions stipulated, but you still were not in compliance. In fact, the first meeting you didn't show up. Now, my question is that, are you pretty certain, have you worked with the district in terms of checking, verifying between completion of the time specified, before specified, it, find out how much work has been done?
Yes, because we have assistance, we have help, we have know-how, we have manpower from a third party. And that was where they said, well, do you have a written contract from it? And my response was, no, I do not have a written contract from it. What I know is the third party is going to be very much involved in the construction. And the third party has mentioned that he plans on staying ahead of the due dates on everything. He doesn't want to carry it right to the noted dates that are on the milestone sheet.
Did the district require a progress report as you started construction? The phase, you have a certain phase, design phase, preliminary to construction phase. You have that kind of phase, Doc? The third party has done that for
No,
you?
we have,
You have phase
we have, I would imagine that question was directed to me, Vince Gorman, or was that directed to the district?
No, to you guys, whoever can answer. You have phase construction.
Okay. Well, by virtue of the fact that the third party has a copy of these milestones, then yeah, they've got their timeline, their date dues, and that's why I added the comment that he gave us verbal assurances that they'd be able to meet that ahead of schedule.
On the construction milestone, these are final dates. I'm just saying you have to have milestones before you get there in terms of what you've accomplished up to that point. You have anything like that been planned for you? Otherwise, you're going to have the same trouble like you had before.
Are you asking whether?
No.
Okay. Did you hear that question?
You heard me?
I didn't.
I'm sorry, Senator, your audio is very low.
I'm very sorry.
Is it possible to speak closer to wherever your microphone is? A little more loudly.
Is that better? No better?
Do you want to repeat, if you don't mind repeating the question, but a little more loud?
Yeah, construction milestones. Yes, those are final completion dates. What about, you're going to have a phase construction. Phase, you have certain steps along the way that you should complete to make sure that you're on target for the final date of completion. Anytime you have construction, you gotta have milestones or phase construction, which starts at the beginning and the end, period. And all that's in between. How do we know you're gonna be on target? How do you know you don't have delays? How do you know that certain things happen along the way where it's gonna stall the project? You have to think about all that in advance. The district should be requesting it also. Anybody there?
Is the question whether there can
That's
be
a question.
additional milestones?
Yeah,
That
in the phase construction incorporated in the milestone, construction milestone. Timelines along the way, when your design is finished, when you commence construction, and so on. There are always going to be delays. You got to have that included in there. Or you have the same problems you had before when the oven didn't work, you didn't know the flappers didn't work. There's so many things that's gone wrong at this location previously.
Well, let me ask further to that question. In the standing order, condition 8 states that within 6 months of the date of the permit to construct, and within that date that's issued, which I believe is coming up very soon. Sorry, respondent shall initiate construction of the enclosures or systems and associated control equipment. Do you believe you'll be able to commence construction, or the ordering of the equipment, is that considered commencement of any of this? Mr. Gorman?
Yeah, that's my understanding of it, which is why we have the large blower fans, which is why we have the electrical panels brought into play. So yes, we are gathering all of the necessary control equipment, just like the rule is very clear saying that within 6 months you've got to have it initiated for all of these different controls. And that's what we have been doing, and the hardware is quite visible on the property, as it will continue to be more and more visible.
And what about the actual enclosures themselves? Are they going to be considerable structures? Do you have a date by which you need to start commencing actual construction in order to complete the construction for the wastewater treatment? You have October 15th deadline. For the raw materials, you have a March 15th, 2021, and so on. Is there a date? Well, let me just, the first question, are these considerable structures that may, I know you said the wastewater treatment was not, but what about the other two? Are they considerable structures that may require significant construction to complete?
Yeah, they are considerable structures. They are permanent structures. And by virtue of the fact that we have the help of a third party, again, it was commented to us that there would not be an issue in the cutoff date.
Sorry.
Not us.
It was the senator. Did you speak with anyone at the district about any milestones to commence the construction of the structures at all?
No, we did not ask for more. No, we did not ask.
I'm wondering if there was any just discussion and whether the district asked for that on their end.
No, just when the senator brought it up just now is the first time I've heard of phase construction milestones to supplement the proposed condition construction milestones.
Okay. Did you have additional questions, Senator?
Well, I say you always have to have that when you plan out a construction program. You have to have milestones along the way. They call it phase construction because that's the final milestone. And if you don't have that, you get things in order and they're critical items. They may not be delivered on time. Lots of things can happen to weather, stall you. It's very difficult to be certain that those timelines are going to be met. And unless you have some idea in advance before the final target date, because once you do and it's delayed for whatever reason, you got to come back for a modification. So what I'm really saying is that if you, in phase, you have certain critical phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, however you phase it out. when you put on notice that you're gonna be late. Whenever you put on notice you're gonna be late, you gotta notify the district that you're not gonna meet that target date. And for the third party, whoever's working with you, they should know that. Plan it properly in advance. You don't have to worry about later on not being on time. Because you can end up not being on time, then what? Oh, we gotta have a modification. Well, at some point in time, we should know that in advance. That's all I gotta say.
Well, I guess a question, and then I'll get to you, Ms. Verdugo Peralta. I guess the question would be, do you have enough information, Mr. Gorman, from your third party, I guess contractor, you can call, even though there's no contract, but for the construction to set today a date by which you would commence or phase in construction? Was that something that we could build into the order simply for, as the senator was putting forth, to keep you on track? It would be helpful so that you don't find, on October 15th that you just aren't going to meet the date and have to come back for a modification.
So I don't expect that my third-party assistance through all of this would have any heartburn with something like that. I'll definitely get his input from it.
Okay, I'm gonna, Ms. Verdugo Peralta had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along the lines of what the senator has brought up, I think it's realistic that based on all of the delays that I have seen, even with I'm doing construction on my property, there's been a lot of delays getting materials, a lot of delays, people even being able to come out to a facility. So I think it's very realistic that they speak with the third party and make sure that COVID-19 is not going to be an issue in regards to material and personnel. I don't think that's a bad idea, especially the way that things are right now. I don't know whether the district has discussed this with them or not, based on possible delays by COVID-19 and not due to any fault of theirs at D&D. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm wondering if it's, it sounds like as of today, we do not have those dates for phase construction, but perhaps one thing to be considered in today's modification would be a condition that by certain dates, Mr. Gorman and Mr. Gorman, that you would speak with your third party contractor or assistant and come up with a phase construction plan that you would submit to the district by a certain date. Is that something that you believe you could do?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay. And then I guess by the end of the hearing, if we come up with what's a realistic time frame for that phased plan, then we could write it into a condition so that we're sure and you're sure that we're able to keep on track and know in advance if there will be significant delays with outside of your control because of COVID-19 or materials availability, et cetera. But we'll know that better based on the plan of execution that you'll have. And perhaps on a break, maybe we can take a break at some point and you could tell us what a reasonable time frame, unless you know now what a reasonable time frame would be for that third party to come up with that phased plan. If you don't, we could take a break. Do you, at this time, do you think you would have an idea how long that might take?
No, I've already put a call into him for other reasons, and he was not available to call me back yet or anything. So I can't speak for his timeline today, the 6th of May. But I will make every effort the rest of the day to get a hold of him and convey to him the discussions we're having about a phase construction milestone timeline. And then I can contact the board and get that to you, but I can't speak for his whereabouts today, but I've already had a call in to him this morning.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Balagopalan, question.
Yes, thank you. I think the senator brought up a good point on the milestone. I just wanted to, I think there's some language in the rule which talks about increments of construction progress under D 415D E, and it says within 6 months after the permit to construct is issued.
Wait, did you say 415?
D
Not
is in D1E.
I was going to say, it can't be DE. Okay.
Yeah, D1E, sorry. D1E. It does talk about increments of construction progress, and it requires that within 6 months after the permit to construct is issued to at least initiate construction of the enclosure and so forth. So that might be a good time frame as a suggestion that they provide a timeline after
Well,
talking to them.
is there more than that? I don't have the rule up. I was trying to pull it up while you're saying that, but is it because we already have a condition number 8 in the existing order, which requires initiation of construction within 6 months from the permit to construct. And Mr. Vince Gorman testified that that their understanding of what that means is that they have been ordering and bringing on site electrical panels, blower fans, and other components, et cetera, and that is the initiation. Are there additional, I'm pulling up the rule, but are there
the rule actually was very, well, it just says initiate construction of the enclosure. Such activity shall include at a minimum breaking ground for the foundation of a new enclosure or for the odor control equipment. So they've 6 months sort of initiate. So anything, it looks like they've already initiated, by buying getting the parts and all the different materials they need. But they just have to, within 6 months, break ground, start doing something, initiate the construction, not just have the material on site.
Okay, I'm bringing in Ms. Verdugo Peralta while I pull up the rule. She had a question or something to add on that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. What I don't want to occur here is I see that they are doing their due diligence, that they're trying, but these are extraordinary times. And I don't want them to be penalized because of those extraordinary situations where they are in fact doing their best to get the materials, getting that third party on board and trying to meet the milestones. But I think everybody will agree that right now it's a very unusual, once in a lifetime situation that I don't want them to be penalized for.
Okay, yes, agreed. However, I think the point is, if there is a more clear path in terms of phase construction with milestones, and if they find that, then they'll know better earlier on.
I agree with that, yes.
Because of material shortages or construction crew shortages, they're not going to make it. They can come back to us sooner and let us know rather than waiting.
Correct. I agree with that. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I think I think what we'll do is, does anyone else have any questions? And we'll figure out what to do about this in terms of maybe adding a condition with a timing for a plan for phase construction. Is there any other questions for either Mr. Vincent or Mr. Bill Gorman? Okay, I don't see any. And so I'm unmuting Miss Sue, but she should unmute herself, I think. Okay, so you have no other witnesses, and but I guess the question that's outstanding is the issue of the phase construction and whether you agree or have any input on whether we should have at least a condition requiring a plan for phase construction to be submitted to the district within a certain period of time. And also we need to understand what would be the best date for the next status hearing in terms of what we have here and what will make the most sense. I don't know if the district has any input on either of those.
Well, I would want to hear from Mr. and Mr. Gorman first, what they're comfortable with in terms of timing.
For the plan?
Yes, I mean, right now, I think 2 weeks to 4 weeks should be enough just to have a plan, not necessarily to execute the plan. And I do some certain steps that I would want to clarify with them is, would they be pouring foundation? Would they be fixing existing foundation? That type of work. It's unclear to me what they are planning to do in terms of that.
So let's ask, I still have, I have them unmuted at this time. Either Bill or Vincent, would you be able to answer the question as to, and we would be looking as I think Ms. Sue is saying, for something a little more detailed in terms of date you plan to pour foundation, date you plan to, I don't know, whatever the next phase is, break ground, etc. Is 2 to 4 weeks sound for that kind of detailed plan? Just submitting the plan. Does that sound like a good time frame?
Yeah, that's fine with us.
I think 4 weeks or 6 weeks or
Within,
what are we saying?
Within 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay. Okay, and we will craft something, and we'll take a break and craft something for consideration for the parties along those lines. And then, Ms. Sue, would you want also to have reports, any kind of monthly reports in terms of letting the district know the progress once that plan is submitted in 4 weeks?
I'm trying to see if there's an existing condition. There is already condition 7 in the current abatement order asks for a status update on construction.
Okay, honor for the first day. Okay, so is that something that's already been submitted?
My understanding, based on what Mr. Harris had said, is that the facility has been providing monthly updates.
Okay.
That's what he testified to.
Okay, so then we'll make it clear in however we craft that additional condition that the status of construction under this plan that will be submitted in 4 weeks will be included in the report, the monthly report for condition 7. Okay, that makes sense to me. All right, is there any other, status, the next status, what if we were going to also modify for that? Does that make sense to wait until, it was 7 months from the last hearing, about 6 or 7 months to this one? 6 or 7 months puts us in November or December. Perhaps that makes sense to do it in December and see that we are on track for the raw materials and rendering area and that the wastewater treatment has been completed.
That makes sense to me.
And Vincent or Bill, Mr. Gorman, which does that make sense to you as well? Sometime in December for our next?
That's fine with us.
Okay. Okay, then what I'd like to do then, are there any other questions? And then if not, what I'd like to do is take a break. And we can try to craft that last condition. And then we can come back with any closing statements and deliberation. So any other questions, board members? Okay. All right, let's take a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 20 after. Okay, we're off the record. Oh, Mr. Gorman, please don't hang up. I will mute your phone until we're back on. And we'll come back at 20 after, okay?
Understood.
Okay, I'm gonna mute your phone now. Okay, nobody else, please leave the meeting. We're gonna just come back at 20 after from our break. Okay, we're off the record. Hey, babe. We're not done, but we should be done by 11. Wow. Yeah. Yes. I think so. Well, let's wait till we get Eli at noon, yeah? Oh, that's nice.
Hey, Julie. Jules?
I see. Number 6.
Hey, Julie, your volume is still on. I just want
Oh.
you know.
Oh my. Okay, thank you. You hear me talking to myself? Just give me 1 minute. I know we said we'd be back at 10:20, but I'm on with the clerk because we're just trying to identify one issue. So we'll be on in just a moment. Okay, once the clerk is back in, we're going to go back on the record. Okay. Okay, we are back on the record, and I'm gonna unmute. Are you unmuted? Okay. No. I'm gonna unmute Mr. Gorman. Let's see. Okay, are you since we can't see you, want to make sure you're back. Vincent, Bill, are you
Yes,
back?
we're both back.
Great. And we're all back. And so I'm proposing my proposal would be in the existing order, we have a condition number 6, which we could remove because condition number 6 is with regard to while the district was still considering the permit applications. That's already been done. The permits have been granted. So we would get rid of that. And I think instead we would add condition number 6, where we would state that respondent shall meet all construction milestones identified in attachment A to this modified order. And then we would take exhibit 7, we'd make some changes because there was the one change, but exhibit 7, we would attach it to the order but we would take out proposed conditions as well. And that would become the construction milestones. In addition, I would propose a second sentence, and I'll do this much more slowly, but I would suggest a second sentence which would read, respondent shall by June 3rd, 2020, now that's 4 weeks from now, by June 3rd, 2020, submit to the district, and I would assume, Ms. Sue, you would like it, so attention to, and we give Ms. Sue's email and also Mr. Harris and his email, and to the board, the hearing board, and that would be to the clerk of the board. by email a detailed plan of increments of phased construction milestones for its total enclosures and associated venting system. And then just to say including but not limited to breaking ground, foundational work, commencement of enclosure construction, etc. Does that make sense? I'll ask, and I'll read it again. I didn't expect anybody would write it down, but start with Mr. Gorman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay,
It makes sense. That's fine with us.
okay. And Ms. Sue, unless you want to also to add, let me unmute you. There you go. You're unmuted.
That makes sense to the district. In addition, I thought it might be helpful for, in terms of our proposed condition construction milestones, it says by October 1st, 2020 to provide the final design documents. If we perhaps move that up a couple of months, if that is okay with the facility, because it makes sense to have the final design documents guide the way to the detailed plan of phase construction.
So are you saying you would like to see that at June 3rd? No.
Or at least earlier than October 1st, because I would think that the facility would have already a good idea of what they should be building prior to October 1st, 2020.
And that seemed to make sense to me, and we'll let Vincent or Bill answer that. But for in the three different areas, the wastewater treatment, condition number 1, the raw materials and rendering area, which is condition 1, and condition 6, the final design documents are like due 2 weeks before completion of construction, which seemed a little odd. Do you know of additional different dates that you could commit to today? Either.
So for the wastewater treatment area, number 1, the October the 1st, 2020 is being changed to June 3rd, 2020?
No way.
Well, would you be able to have those final design documents by June 3rd, or is there another date you would propose?
August?
Yeah, I would think August 1st. That's moving it 2 months ahead.
August 1st, 2020?
And is that acceptable to the district?
We can work with that.
Okay, and then for the raw materials area enclosure and associated venting system, you have March 1st. Is it possible to move that up significantly in the same manner?
December,
December of 2020?
correct.
How about January of
2021?
January 1st of 2021? That's keeping the 2-month, acceleration
Okay.
in place.
How about January 1st, 2021?
And that's for the rendering area?
That is the
Right.
raw materials and
material.
rendering.
Okay. Ms. Sue, do you want to consult or with the, or do you? or-
That works for us.
Okay, so we would change, okay, so just to be clear, on Exhibit 7, the construction milestones, under wastewater treatment, the very first condition, we are changing October 1st to August 1st, 2020. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then under raw materials and rendering area, condition number 1, we are changing March 1st, 2021 to January 1st, 2021. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then number 6, under raw materials and rendering area, we are changing August 15th, 2021 to January 1st, 2021. Is that correct?
And that's okay.
It is?
Yeah.
Or does that need a different date?
Well, design documents have to be in
Yeah.
before groundbreaking, so
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, that's fine with us. The January 1st, 2021 in lieu of August 15th.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, anything else before we move on to, if there's any members of the public and we have closing statements?
Can I make one more suggested change to the proposed conditions?
Oh, yes, and we also need to determine the status update, but go ahead, Ms.
I know there's already been some discussion regarding number 4 under raw materials and rendering area. I think to avoid confusion, because number 4 under wastewater treatment already has, testing the equipment for the wastewater treatment area. If for number 4, we could just change wastewater treatment area to raw materials receiving area. So leave it for one area, raw materials receiving area, in number 4 under raw materials and rendering area section.
That makes sense. Mr. Gorman, Vincent or Bill, is that acceptable?
That's acceptable.
And also I wanted to point out that in Rule 415, in terms of construction, they do talk about breaking ground within 6 months time. So I don't know if in order we want to revise that, and it's unclear to me now, and Mr. Gorman can speak to this, whether breaking ground is required based on the type of enclosure that they are proposing. I just want to make sure that that rule condition, that rule requirement is accounted for in this order, so we don't run into a situation later.
On that very same sentence, there's the word or,
Mm-hmm.
the testing equipment. The breaking ground, I read as my understanding of the word in that context was started. Not necessarily a jackhammer for this and a jackhammer for that, because there'll probably be some areas where we will need to pour new concrete. There'll be other areas where we may not need to pour new concrete. And I don't want the term breaking ground to come back to hurt me.
Ms. Su, did you wish to, based on that?
I mean, it's just a difficult situation because it's unclear what the structure will be at this point, and whether or not even breaking ground is necessary for the structures that are proposed. So maybe it can be something shall break ground if necessary by the milestones provided in their phase construction timeline, if necessary, or something to that effect.
Are you talking about
Yeah.
condition 8 in the existing order?
No, just so on page 5 of Rule 415, top, or page 4 and page 5, bottom of page 4, it talks about increments of construction progress.
Yes.
And it does say within 6 months after the date a permit to construct is issued for a permanent total enclosure required by this rule, the owner or operator of a rendering facility shall initiate construction of the enclosure. Such activity shall include a minimum of breaking ground for the foundation of a new enclosure or for the odor control equipment.
So that's reflected in condition 8, which states that within 6 months of the date the permit to construct is issued, shall initiate construction. So are you concerned? I mean, the rule is the rule. I don't know if, you know, we haven't specified in condition 8 that a breaking of ground is necessary.
Okay,
The rule states that, but we can't change the rule.
yes.
But do you think we should, would you propose any kind of amendment to condition 8, or do you think we won't have an issue, or are you concerned that we will have an issue?
I think I was concerned that we would have an issue, but we can read it. We could read condition 8 to read more broadly, but I think it would be good to have a deadline for breaking ground, and that's something that, if necessary, I'm not saying it's necessary, if the facility.
That would be included in this plan, which we'll have by June 3rd. And so we would say that that they would have all their milestones, including but not limited to, I had suggested breaking ground, but we could add if necessary.
Okay.
Foundational work, commencement of enclosure construction, etc. So,
Okay.
and that way it'll be part of the plan. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other thoughts before we move on to if there's members of the public?
Will the plan that they propose be binding? Or is it just a plan that they submit, or will the milestones be binding?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Will the plan that they submit be
okay.
binding, or in terms of the milestones that the facility is proposing?
Well, let's ask positions, and then we can talk during deliberation as to whether they should be binding. I think that they were first proposed, and I don't want to speak for the senator, but I think that the senator had first proposed them because it's important to stay on track or know if you're veering off track. But I don't know if we want to hold them to it, given the COVID-19 situation and the uncertainties that are involved with this, rather than just setting off alarm bells that they aren't meeting it, and so maybe they have to come and discuss possible modifications. Is that what, I don't know if you have a position, Ms. Sue, and then we can talk about it during deliberation.
I think that's a difficult question. I mean, I do want to make sure that the facility is on track, but I also want to give them flexibility precisely for some of the reasons that you noted.
Well, let's talk about it during, Mr. Gorman, Vincent or Bill, do you have a strong feeling against having those milestone once you have discussed them, created the plan with your third party constructor, consultant, having those be binding?
Words have meaning, and it has been our experience that words hurt us. So yeah, I'd rather it be written in such a way that as needed, if appropriate, I could unearth an old wastewater line that predated our being here. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to have a 7.8 earthquake. I mean, there's 1,000 things that can occur. And I'm sure my goal and your goal is to cut down the 150 telephone calls that you've gotten because of my facility, even though I have been operating at 10% volume of material. I think as needed or if needed or words like that, those would be a little easier for me to tolerate than being a target for another gotcha.
I think that the question more is along the lines of, we would have a sentence that would say that you'll submit a plan by June 3rd. That is binding. The plan, however, would be based on what you and your expert have determined to be the necessary construction steps. What we're considering is that there would be an additional sentence that would say that respondents shall meet the construction milestones outlined in the June 3rd plan, something along those lines. And whether you feel, it wouldn't be saying today you have to break ground or pour foundation. It would be whatever you and your expert determine will be the phased plan construction milestones, that you would meet those milestones.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. You know, barring force majeure. But we're talking about the construction milestones that we will propose by June the 3rd.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
There's-
barring a second outbreak of COVID-19.
Oh, you'd have to list
in the
everything in the
fall.
world.
I know.
No, except for
My
this
my
exception.
crystal ball doesn't
Yeah.
work that well.
Yeah.
The idea being that if you're not meeting them, that would be an indication that a further modification hearing would have to be held, and an explanation of why you're not meeting them and whether there's good cause to change those deadlines would make sense at that time.
Yeah, I guess,
Yeah, that's our response, I guess. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, understood. Understood your hesitation, and we'll discuss it a little bit more. We'll hear closings and we'll discuss it during deliberation, and hopefully come to the best conclusion that makes the most sense in this situation. Okay, board members, anything else before we close the hearing? Senator, hold on. Okay, you are unmuted.
As we agreeing to stipulate on dates, times, and accomplishment, I think the government should be really serious about saying yes to these dates. We should include right now what the flexibilities might be. That's why we need to know the phase and timeline or schedule when the phase will be accomplished, so we don't have to come back for another modification. The reason why I raised that statement, because we had another hearing and October 30th, 2019, and we had previously set some target dates and times, and none were complied with. So, I mean, I think both sides right now is being very serious about saying, yes, we want phase construction, and yes, we have the intention of complying with them, except if there's some unforeseen set of circumstances should exist. I think that's where then, therefore, you'd have to come back for modification again, as you did here. And on that note, Madam Chair and others, I looked at your report last night, page 3, line 13, where it says that if a company that exists that's performing this kind of a rendering should have 12 months after the November 3rd, 2017 to apply for a permit, and 12 months after that to complete construction. That's one of the orders. Nothing has been done in that regard.
That's the a recitation of Rule 415. And you're talking about, just so everyone's clear.
I understand, but
Wait.
they did exist at that time.
Let me just, so we're clear on the record what you're reading from. The senator is reading from the existing findings and decision, page 3, rule, I think paragraph 8, which is reciting the requirement of rule 415. So yes, the rule did require, and that's why we're here on an order for abatement, because that was not done. And there is a 12-month
That was not done.
deadline, and that is encompassed within the existing conditions of the order. Conditions, condition 10, and then there's condition 9, which is 24 months, but that's so they can phase the construction. But so that is already in the order.
The point I'm making is that that was a condition then, and they were in operation then, and they should have been in compliance with that order then, and they were not. And so therefore, today we're stipulating to another condition timeline and what the intentions. If there's a problem, should develop along the way. That's why I raised the question. So, and I read other things in this report where they didn't have the money. They didn't have the money to do the driveway. I mean, you know, other excuses happen.
Okay, wait. Do you have any questions though? Because we'll hold that for deliberation. I just want to know if right now you have any other questions before we close the hearing.
Right, City Gorman. Do you have any idea what could happen between non-completion date that could cause you to delay this project and not be in compliance with the
No,
condition?
I don't. Senator, I don't have a clue.
That's a good answer for you.
Okay, I see Ms. Verdugo-Peralta has a question. Wait, try to unmute you. Hold on. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along those lines, because there's this uncertainty, I think there also needs to be written into this a caveat of some sort, something that's saying like barring any unforeseen extraordinary circumstances, because I think we're in that situation and we don't have any idea how long this is going to last, how long it's going to affect the rippling effect if things start opening up, how that'll be a backup with any materials, any ability for their third party to respond. For their sake, I think we need to put that caveat or something similar to that.
Well, let's hold this all for discussion and deliberation. But I just want to say the point is, we might as well not have any deadlines then. The deadlines should be deadlines, and if a party can't meet them, that's when they have to come to us for a modification hearing, and we determine at that point whether there's good cause. If we just leave it loose, then we're not making the determination as to whether there's good cause. Parties are doing that, and we don't want that situation. So, but let's talk about this more during deliberation, more right now before I close the hearing. I want to make sure no one has any other outstanding questions that need to be answered. And I don't see anyone wishing that. So what I'd like to do now is just looking at who's on the hearing to see if there's anyone who has any questions from, I'm not questions, anyone who wishes to be heard from the public. And I'm not seeing anyone who's on the phone from the public. And so if anyone is on, who I don't recognize from the public, which I don't believe that there is anyone left over. Okay, so no one is here to raise their hand. So I'm going to turn it to Miss Sue for a closing statement. And Vincent and Bill, I'm going to mute you, and then I will unmute you in a moment.
Hi, good morning. The parties have agreed to the proposed construction milestones with the revisions that were discussed. We think this sets a path for making sure that they comply with the enclosure deadline and also the deadline to commence operation of the air pollution control equipment. We also think the additional condition where they need to submit a detailed plan by June 3rd, 2020 would help them make sure that they keep on track. Given the pandemic situation, we do think not requiring them to abide by their detailed plan would give them flexibility. I would not want 1 day or 2 day difference to mean a violation of the abatement order. And especially in the proposed construction milestones, which was Exhibit 7, there are drop dead deadlines for completion of the enclosure, for installation of the blower, and I think that will keep them on track. Those are the important dates to make sure that the final construction is completed on time. And I thank Mr. both Mr. Gormans for being here today. I know that business has been hit, and so I thank them for their time and for listening very carefully and agreeing to these conditions. Thank you.
And before I turn it over to Vincent or Bill, Ms. Sue, what are your thoughts in closing on the next status hearing? Does it make sense to have it sooner rather than later? And if there are issues with this more detailed compliance plan, the parties can come before the hearing board for modification. And if there aren't, then it can be continued for a number of months.
I do not have a strong opinion as to the next status hearing. I do want to hear from the facility because in my opinion, if they did miss one of the proposed construction milestones, the district does have the ability to come before the hearing board to modify the abatement order if necessary. And also similarly, the facility does have the ability to come and seek a modification of the abatement order if they find that they can't acquire or source the equipment, or if they foresee any trouble coming down the line.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to unmute your line now, Vincent and Bill. I don't know, Vincent, if you wanted to give the closing or make any further statements, but either of you, please just identify who you are.
This is Vincent, nothing from me.
Bill,
This
any?
is Bill, not me.
Okay. Okay, board members, I think it seems that we all probably are in agreement that there is good cause to modify the order as has been requested. The really great news, I just want to point out once again that when we started this case or matter a long time ago, I know that both Vincent and Bill Gorman maybe did not realize or were not on board or did not show up for whatever reason. And there were a lot of issues at the facility. And to hear Mr. Harris say that today there were 3 inspections since the last hearing, and they are in complete compliance with all of the requirements of the standing order. They also have received the permits to construct, and that was back in December of last year. So everything is moving really well. And then also, of course, to hear from Mr. Gorman and Mr. Gorman about that they have contacted and they've had a lot of conversations with a third party, and they have a really good idea of what they need to do to move forward and are committing today to these milestones that will keep them in compliance with what we originally had asked for in the existing order. So I think with all of that, there's good cause. We should talk about some of the loose issues, but I think, and I would read it again, but I think that simply requiring compliance with these milestone dates requiring within 4 weeks submission of a more specified milestone plan of phase construction, but not requiring that they comply necessarily with every one of those interim milestones, but rather they are, as they already were, required to update monthly the district. And then the district, as Ms. Sue stated, can always come and request modification if it looks like they're not gonna meet those hard and fast deadlines of construction completion, et cetera. And then for us to come back, if that all works and the district does not require another modification hearing, to come back with a regular modification hearing in December, which is about 7 months from now, which is how long it's been since the last. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear who would like to. Okay, Mr. Balagopalan.
I agree with you, Madam Chair, that I think we can find good cause in granting this modification with the proposed condition with the construction milestone. I think the requirement to submit by June 30th within 4 weeks, a specific different timelines that the senator had suggested is a good one. It's a good thing just to keep them on track or see where they are lagging behind or ahead of schedule, but that shouldn't be the binding. I think what should finally bind them is what's in Exhibit 7 with those specific dates. That's what they have to abide by. The plan is just to keep everybody on track so they know where they are lagging or leading. So that plan that they submit June 3rd should not be a binding one, but the Exhibit 7 dates should be the one that is finally binding. And if they don't comply with their date, they need to come in for a modification.
Great, thank you for that. Anyone else? Ms. Verdugo Peralta? Oops, I just muted you. Now you're unmuted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also agree that they do meet the criteria and are able to not only, I give them a lot of credit. I give them a lot of credit exactly for what you were saying earlier, Julie, that Madam Chair, sorry, that they started so far from this point and have come so far. And it all has to do with cooperation and the willingness on their part to do everything that they've had to do to get to this point, I think is commendable. The fact that they will be able to, if they don't meet a certain milestone, to be able to come in and ask for a modification, that takes away for me my concern about a caveat. And, you know, the fact that they can do that to me would eliminate my request to put that caveat in there. And the fact that the senator mentioned putting in force the plan smaller increments of time, so that they also are going to be aware of where they are at, as well as us, the district, knowing where they should be. So for all of those reasons, I too can vote for this. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion before I make a motion? Senator, let me unmute you. There you go.
Right, I think that by having these increments of time from start date to finish date, it could raise a red flag that I'm slipping, and the district should be notified. That's a good faith effort if that's what they intend to do. But I must tell you, reading this report of the history of this outfit, they made no apologies for not being in compliance with the conditions set forth earlier. And to give you one example, the cracks in the roads, in the lots, on the lot, they say, well, we just didn't have the money. If there's a situation to develop henceforth, they said we don't have the money, so therefore target date is going to be delayed. We had a modification on this report. So what you get requests for There's modification after modification after modification. Then what is the intention? The intent to just set target dates and don't comply with them? I don't give them much effort at all. There are times they could have been, should have been on target, and there's no excuse why they're not being on target. They came back and they said, give me a modification. Well, we gave them a modification. My question is, how many times they can make the request? How many times we have to do that before we say, you're just generally not in compliance with the terms and conditions of the district, and you must be in compliance. We got to be very emphatic about that, because I think they just think this is a slipshod approach. That's my opinion.
Thank you. And I do want, I'll let Dr. Bernstein, and then I'll, oh, I'm sorry, I muted you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to reiterate some of the comments that were made, and I agree that good cause has been made in this situation. History is history, and currently the history is such that the India has been compliant with the conditions that we have presented through the inspections that have been reported to us and by Mr. Harris. And so therefore, delineating a timeline is at the suggestion of the senator with regards to a phased approach that would at least give them a realistic inclination of how to proceed with the project makes total sense. I believe the modifications of the dates that we've made today also gives them some latitude and also gives us some comfort in that certain milestones will be met accordingly, and granting them having another hearing, I believe in August, or was the date that we recommended to follow up to see.
I thought December.
December, I'm sorry. In December makes total sense, and that way we'll be able to see exactly how compliant they have been and then act accordingly. So again, I feel that good cause has been made.
Thank you. And I'm just looking in my calendar to see. It looks like we could probably come on the 8th of December, which is when the first final construction on the wastewater is due to be done. So that might be a good date if other board members agree with that. It's a Tuesday. Does that make sense? Okay, I see nodding heads. Okay. Senator, hold on, let me unmute you. Go ahead, Senator. Oh, sorry. Wait, start over again. You were muted. Sorry, go ahead.
All these points are well made, well taken. But I would suggest, I remind you to read the report of October 30th, 2019. Then he'll tell you how out of compliance they have been, even though conditions have been stipulated to. My only concern is that when you agree to target dates and times of stipulation, make every effort to comply. If you can't, notify us well in advance, not the very last minute. The reason why we had a modification then, or you may have one subsequent to today, because somebody just didn't do their job and didn't notify the district. The district didn't require notification prior thereto. Today they are. And that's, I can go along with it from this point going forward. But I'm not going to pat these guys on the back at all. They made it, set a condition, and then they say later on, I didn't do it because I didn't have the money. Come on.
I do want to point out, first of all, obviously there has been non-compliance. Otherwise, we would not have an order for abatement. But you may recall the photographs that we have received from the very beginning, the first hearing, I remember almost, I think, a whole horse or more than sitting out on a property for hours or days, pools of liquid material, cracks and things. But then seeing as the hearings progressed to a completely different facility, and now having heard that on 3 different inspection dates, not a single infraction. I think that is tremendous. I don't think this is, I do understand what you're saying, Senator, that there was the one time when they asked for the permit application to be delayed until they had more money and to fix some cracks. That was done, though, a very long time ago. And the permits to construct were actually issued a long time ago at this point. And so they have been in complete compliance, which means we had a condition that while the permits were pending, the applications were pending, to provide whatever information was necessary. That obviously was done because the permits were turned around pretty quickly. So I think, yes, the history, as I think Dr. Bernstein said, history is history. But I do think that we now have a significant body of evidence before this board that this facility is now rendering quickly, moving things within the rule time frame, and that is their regular course of business. Now, moving forward, we'll see what happens. And I think it does make sense. I thought you had an excellent idea, Senator, to have those interim phased construction milestones, not to make them binding, but in the very next condition, they have to be reported monthly on compliance with it so that any issues will be raised very quickly. And this board would have to hear good cause to move any more milestones. So, Mr. Balagopal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think one thing that is troubling and is every time we hear this status update and the inspector comes and we hear 30 complaints, if I heard correctly, I think he said 150 complaints. So this is the last time, and they're not able to identify the source. So that is a troubling situation for the community, to have this many complaints and not being able to identify. And we have heard that everybody's down. D&D is operating at 10% capacity, but still we do have, and I'm not saying it's D&D, it could be the other 4 or 5, the rendering plans in the area. But I think, there should be a better approach in trying to identify. And I'm not, I happened to see something on TV yesterday where they actually training dogs to identify COVID-19 viruses. The dogs' nose are very sensitive, and really the district should start looking into I hate to use the word out of the box, but other technologies to able to pinpoint the source and not every time come and say, yeah, there were 150 complaints, but we don't know who they are, or we cannot pinpoint. I think that's, I don't think the community wants to know, hear that, time and time again, that's the situation.
Understood. Okay, Ms. Verdugo-Peralta. Oops. Can you unmute yourself? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To that point, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area, but there are several rendering companies there, slaughterhouses. In fact, in that city, I think there's only 200 actually real residents that live there in that city. Yes, the surrounding cities, like the city I grew up in, Monterey Park, are affected, but it's because of the amount of facilities that are doing this type of business and the slaughterhouses. So it's very easy for me to understand that there are 150, if not more, complaints, but given the fact that there are so many, that whole entire city, basically, we all know, people who grew up around there, we all know that that city is specifically for slaughterhouses and rendering companies. And that's where they are all basically collected and pushed into, so that the rest of the cities don't have to deal with that.
And
I just want that to be known.
I'm glad it was raised and that the hearing board noted for the record that it is concerning that there are a lot of complaints. But again, that now we're talking about something that's outside
Yes.
this hearing and the matter today, which is the order for abatement to comply with the rule that is put in place actually to try and cut down on all of that.
Absolutely.
So, so I think it's good to know, but I think we should probably limit our discussion on that from here. And if there's any other thoughts, I will make a motion. Okay, I'm going to make a motion, and that is in the matter of South Coast Air Quality Management District versus D&D Services Inc. doing business as West Coast Rendering Company, case number 3462-4. I move that we modify, we find good cause to modify the standing order for abatement to include the construction milestones. And I will be more specific as to the changes that we're going to make to the order itself. And that is, we will be deleting existing condition number 6, as that condition has already been complied with and the permits to construct issued. And instead, we will be replacing it with a new condition 6, which will have 2 sentences as follows. First sentence will read, respondent shall meet all construction milestones identified in attachment A to this modified order. And exhibit 7 will be attached as attachment A. But that sentence will simply read, I'll say it one more time, respondent shall meet all construction milestones identified in attachment A to this modified order. Second sentence shall read, respondent shall, by June 3rd, 2020, comma, submit to the district, and in parentheses, it will say, attention, Daphne Sue at her email address and Dylan Harris at his email address, close parentheses, and the hearing board. And in parentheses, it will say, attention, clerk of the board and clerk of the board's email address. A detailed, close parentheses, a detailed plan of increments of phased construction milestones for its total enclosures and associated venting systems, including but not limited to breaking ground, comma, if necessary, comma, foundational work, comma, commencement of enclosure construction, comma, etc., period. And then I further move that condition 12, which is the date for status and modification hearing, now be changed to read December 8th, 2020, because that will be the next status hearing unless we have to come back for another before it. And I want to turn also to Exhibit 7, and Exhibit 7 will be modified as follows. First of all, this will become attachment A to the order. The words proposed conditions in the heading will be deleted. Sorry, is that you, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. Why are we calling it attachment A?
Because I'm going to attach it to the order. Does that make sense to you?
I would just leave it as it's marked as Exhibit 7.
I would like it to be part of the actual order, because that way it is something that is, otherwise it's a little.
Yeah, it will still be attached. I could still attach it, but just attach it as it's labeled as Exhibit 7. So instead of.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, if that's easier for the clerk, then let me go back to my motion for number 6, condition 6, going back to the order. We'll say respondent shall meet all construction milestones identified in Exhibit 7 attached to this modified order.
Yes.
Okay. Respondent shall meet all construction milestones identified in Exhibit number 7 attached to this modified order. And then going back to Exhibit 7, it will no longer be changed to attachment A. It will still be marked as Exhibit 7. The words proposed conditions will be deleted from the heading. Under wastewater treatment, number 1, condition number 1 will now read August 1st, 2020 instead of October 1st, 2020. Moving down to the raw materials and rendering area conditions. That condition number 1, the March 1st, 2021 date will be changed to January 1st, 2021. And similarly, in condition number 6, the date of August 15th, 2021 will be changed to January 1st, 2021. And then in condition 4, under raw materials and rendering area, on the first line where it says testing the equipment for the wastewater treatment area, the words wastewater treatment will be deleted, and instead it will read raw material receiving area. So it will now read, by May 1st, 2021, respondent shall complete testing the equipment for the raw materials receiving area for proper operation, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's all the changes on Exhibit 7. And then I'm going to further move that we update the findings portion of the existing order. And those findings will include, number 1, I don't have wording for it, but it will include, number 1, the dates of inspection by Mr. Dillon, and the fact that that the respondent was in compliance with all conditions of the order. It will also receive, it will also state findings that the permits to construct were issued on December 8th, 2019. And it will also state that respondents have engaged a third party to assist with construction, and they have committed to have a detailed plan by January 3rd, 2020. And that is all I will add to the findings section.
I second the motion.
Thank you. It is seconded, and discussion, Senator, discussion. Oh, sorry, I muted you. Someone unmuted you. Please start over.
The third party would be assisting in design and construction, not just construction. Design and construction.
Thank you. I will add that to the findings.
Number 2, next question. Certain conditions are being modified. What does that imply? That it was a condition that was agreed to before, but now you're modifying it? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Go ahead.
Which ones are you talking about? Because the conditions.
Two of them, you say condition X is not being modified. Are you modifying any condition that was previously agreed to?
Yes, the only thing I'm doing is removing condition number 6 because it's already been complied with. And instead, we're adding a new condition number 6, which will include all of these milestone dates. The changes to the milestone dates that were read into the record were not pushing those dates back, but moving them forward, as was agreed to during the hearing. Does that answer the questions?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on that motion? Oh, Ms. Sue, did you?
May I suggest that the status hearing be held on December 10th instead of December 8th? That way the district can give an update as to whether or not the commencement operation of the total enclosure or an associated control system actually happened.
That is acceptable to me, and Ms. Verdugo Peralta, is that acceptable as the second?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ms. Sue. Okay, the motion has been made, amended, seconded. Any other discussion?
Did the respondents hear that date change?
Let me. Thank you for that, Madam Clerk. I just unmuted Vincent, Bill, Mr. Gorman. Is that date acceptable to you in terms of, instead of the 8th of December, it will be the 10th of December, which is a Thursday?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Madam Clerk, for that. Okay, I'm going to mute that again. And if there's no other discussion, I'm going to call for a vote. Okay, Mr. Balagopalan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Senator, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dr. Bernstein, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Verdugo Peralta, you vote?
Aye.
I vote yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. This was an excellent hearing. Great input by all board members, and I want to thank the parties for coming up with a timeline which works within what we had originally seen they had agreed to, and that makes sense. And I hope it works through this pandemic, and we'll see compliance next time we meet again in December. And is there any other business, board members, other than, sorry, Madam Clerk, what is off? You'll have received email.
Caltech.
Caltech was off calendar for tomorrow, which leaves us with one matter tomorrow on consent calendar. So we will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for that one matter. Any other business? Okay, thank you. We are adjourned for the day
Bye, everybody.
Have a good
Have a
night.
nice night.
and day.